I forgot to mute everybody. Okay. So hopefully we just got it. And we will come to a space that feels like it's going to bring some ease into the body. And as we know, that can be any space. Let me make sure my phone is on do not disturb. Once a week, I manage to mess up my mat quite significantly. All right, we are finding a space in which we can at least be at ease. So sometimes relaxing is a tall order, but if we can find a way that muscles can remain muscularly soft, that's really what we're aiming for here at the beginning of class. And we're just modeling for our brain what that's like. Rarely are we without tension during the day, without contraction. And as you're sort of picking your place to be, props invited, something behind the head. If you're laying on your back, maybe something even behind the knees, but feel free to lay on your side, your belly, legs up a wall, even seated in a chair if that feels better for your hips. And you might take a few of those settling breaths, those deeper inhales. We can think about a longer exhale. We might even imagine, we were just talking about this before class, using our mind's eye to think about those exhales settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. That's going to be different for all of us. And once you feel those settling breaths are complete, just let the body breathe itself. Not a lot of effort or noticing of the breath. We take these first few minutes of class just to notice what might be present in the physical body. So sometimes things are arising, could be physical sensations, could be emotions, could be thoughts. They're not independent of each other. Usually one sparks another. But when we practice, and it is a skill of practicing noticing physical body, we can sometimes quiet that chatter of the mind. We can bring ourselves back into the present moment. And for practical reasons, we're literally just checking in to see how is the body today. So as we're resting here, we might notice something's calling our attention in that physical body. We also might notice that not a lot is in our awareness or not a lot is arising. So what you might do with your mind's eye is just name a space in the body, checking in with that space and just noticing what might be present. Sometimes simply bringing that awareness to an area will bring some of those sensations into our awareness as well. So just about a minute here in silence, noticing sensation as it arises or checking in with different spaces of the body to see what might be present. And then drawing your awareness to your breath. And we're not changing breath. Right now, we're just going to notice the path of our breath. So when you inhale, where do you experience the breath? Maybe we feel it in the nose or the throat. Perhaps there's expansion in the chest, maybe even the belly. As you exhale, there might be a sense of release, or we even sometimes say it feels like deflating. Maybe we experience the temperature, the sound in the throat, the nose as the exhale leaves the body. So pausing here, noticing the path of the inhale and the exhale. Throughout our practice today, that tuning into sensation, physical sensation in the body, the tuning into breath are all ways that we can remain present, experiencing this practice from moment to moment, an opportunity to quiet the mind. Let's take a moment to wiggle, to stretch if that feels good after we've been resting here. Might maybe a space too. We just really tune into the intuition of the body. Normally, it knows exactly what it wants, what it might need. We're going to begin our first pose in child's pose. And while I'm reclining, I just want to demonstrate if child's pose is tough on back, on knees, on the crease of your thigh, you're welcome to remain here with knees drawing in. If you're going to go into child's pose, be kind here to that back. I'm going to roll to my side. And we're really just finding this space, a couple of ways to prop yourself up. If it feels too intense on knees, you can place a blanket behind the knees, resting on the calves. If you're a person, sometimes this has to do with the bone structure. If your ankles, if your toes don't point, you might place a rolled blanket or towel underneath your ankles because sometimes it looks like our ankles are more like this. I tend to, for me, especially when I'm teaching, rest my head so I don't get too muffled on my microphone, but maybe your head is resting on the floor. Arms can be reaching overhead, or if shoulders are feeling it today, you might even have hands down by your side. We were talking at the beginning of class how to bring some breath into some different spaces. As Westerners, we tend to breathe in the top third of our lungs. The tricky part about that is we have this great nerve called the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve. It is responsible for respiration. And it also eavesdrops on our breath. And so when we're breathing deeper, maybe even when we're exhaling longer, that vagus nerve sends a message to the brain that we are more at ease. And so, especially in this position, sometimes, especially if we're chest breathers or belly breathers, this provides an opportunity for the breath to have to go somewhere else. We can't necessarily breathe into those particular areas. And we might imagine here with that pressure on the belly, a little bit on the chest, that it's going into the side body as you're breathing in. You can imagine those rib cage areas on the left and right expanding. We're creating a suggestion here for our brain that it start to pay attention to more of these areas of the lungs, that it can go deeper into the bottom space of the lungs, the back space of the lungs.
physically that has so many advantages, more oxygen. Again, telling our vagus nerve, or through our breath, the vagus nerve is eavesdropping, telling our brain that we're more at ease, and we will be more at ease. The brain takes us up on that suggestion. And from our sort of pranic idea here, the energetic body gains more of its prana. That prana piggybacks on breath. And we have more prana for our use to circulate throughout the body, really leading to a sense of balance. Every space in the body is being nourished by that prana. This can be a space we tune into sensation, we tune into breath. We're going to begin to ease out of the pose. And we always take those wiggles in between after staying in a particular position for a longer period of time. We might want to stretch out, we might want to move around. We're going to go into a twist called deer pose. And if you have some props available, so a blanket, a bolster, pillows, any of those things that you would like to rest on, sometimes I use my meditation pillow. If you have those available, especially a blanket and blocks, you can make your own bolster. We think of our blanket as the hot dog bun. This is our hot dog, purple hot dog. We're going to place it inside the blanket and fold it over. That creates a bolster. We can set that up over on our right side. So our deer pose is a twist meant to really open the front side of the body and a little bit of that torso. So here we're going to lean back. We'll place the soles of the feet on the floor and just drop your knees over to the right side. Our left leg is going to walk its way back. And then we twist to the right. And we're just adjusting that bolster, if we need it, to our torso, so the length of our torso. Now, for some of us, it feels better to remain upright. Some of us, depending on how our pelvis and rib cage are related, can come down to elbows. We might rest down on this homemade bolster. A few of you might even make it to the floor and need nothing. So, adjusting for yourself here in our deer pose. Arms are comfortable, head is comfortable.
So you might rest on one cheek or the other. I tend to rest on my chin and fists just for microphone reasons, but you might decide you want to rest your head one way or the other. And here we're going to ask ourselves if we're feeling very much stretch or tension or resistance in the front left thigh. And if not, we might walk that heel a little closer to the bun if that's possible. Deer pose is one of those, I always say, is a really nice, get it all at one time kind of pose. We're releasing some spine, abdominal, back connective tissue. We're releasing some hip flexor, the front of the thigh connective tissue. We might even be releasing some of the shoulder area depending on how we're resting. It's a lot of bang for your buck, this particular pose. We're also wringing out things in the torso. So we talk a lot about muscle and its connective tissue, but we want to remember all this abdominal area, this viscera, our organs. That too is surrounded by connective tissue that is interwoven and supporting those organs within that abdominal cavity. We may experience some release there as well. In this twist, the breath might feel a little less accessible. So we might again imagine with our mind's eye that we're breathing into maybe side body or back bottom rib cage. We envision that breath expanding and eventually that energy will follow thought. This particular pose tends to be a good release for those of us who experience what I call mystery low back pain, like is not specifically diagnosed or related to herniated or bulging disc. It can be a nice release for anybody who is doing a lot of activity. Could be, out in the yard, could be in the home. I know we've had all different kinds of activities, many of us, in the past month or so. And it's a nice way to release, to bring more ease to that low back area. And often to that middle back area as well, that thoracic area. We might tune in to sensation. If anything is gaining our awareness, or tune in to the breath, noticing the path of the breath. We're going to begin to ease out of the pose by pressing into the palms and first
bringing the torso off of the floor, your bolster, or rising up, and then coming out of the twist. That's just a little nicer way to treat that spine. We're going to move to the other side. So if you do have props, you want to just go ahead and place them to the left. We'll make some of those adjustments as needed. And this time the knees just drop to the left with the right leg walking back. Letting your props, if you're using those, just line up with the torso. This is one of those we're not really trying to get anywhere. We just land where we land. Actually, that's probably every yin pose, isn't it? It's not one of those, it is all of those. We come down to rest, perhaps making an adjustment with that right leg if you're not feeling much stretch or release. You can walk that heel a little closer to the bottom. You might rest on one or the other cheek, or chin on hands, or chin on your prop. And just to note too, you may not need a prop, or again, on this side, you might need to be a little bit higher depending on how those bones are letting you come to rest. This has much to do with how your rib cage and pelvis bones are related. And as you're settling in here, you might even just make note of any similarities or differences in the sides, in your right side compared to your left side. Perhaps noticing if you're holding on to any sneaky tension. Sometimes it's checking in at a few places, the shoulders. Pardon me. I just realized for some strange reason I was holding on to tension in my right leg. Noticing if there are spaces that maybe you could breathe into and invite to have more ease in that area. And as that tension perhaps releases, also know that sometimes it either won't or it comes right back. That is not uncommon. As the body learns to release, as we build a window of tolerance for some of our poses, that tension will begin to fade more and more or stay faded for longer periods of time. We also listen to the messages of this body. If anything is leading to pain, it's time to come out of the pose. Nothing in any yoga practice should be painful, and we don't work our way through pain. However, things may feel uncomfortable, or there may be a level of discomfort that isn't necessarily painful, but uncomfortable. And that may be a space to explore for yourself. Does breath help release it? Does noticing help build some tolerance for that discomfort? Does that discomfort lead to pain? That message from the body that things need to change. When you're ready, we're going to press into those hands. We're going to rise up through that torso, untwisting and taking a little time if you need it to wiggle around. We're going to open the inner thighs and we're going to have lots of options to do that. If hip structure is such that a forward fold is tricky for you, you might actually lay on your back in reclining butterfly with the knees dropping out. So reclining, knees dropping out, soles of the feet together. That can always be supported by blocks behind those knees as well. There's a couple of ways to open our inner thighs here in seated if that's appropriate for you. You could be on blocks or a blanket to help you forward fold. You could have your legs out in our dragonfly. You could have your feet together in our, my hip just popped, in our butterfly. So either space here in seated or reclining in butterfly. I tend to use my blocks in a forward fold. You're welcome to, if you've got those handy. You could also support the head with the hands if that's accessible. Just a reminder, I'm going to turn sideways for this one. Sometimes a full expression of our pose is just a few inches forward, depending on your hip structure, depending on some flexibility here. That's okay. We're not really trying to get anywhere. Again, we're letting gravity do the work. So finding the space where you would like to be, forward fold or reclining, supporting head or not. We might be in butterfly in a forward fold. We might be in our dragonfly where legs are out into a letter V. This is an inner thigh connective tissue release, but it's also pelvic floor. If you happen to be reclining, you might even experience some release through the front of the pelvis. Experiencing release, I think that always comes with like these, oh, that's going to be so pleasant. But for any of us who've done yen for a long period of time, it's like not always pleasant. There are some really tight spaces in the body that are uncomfortable. And that's where we can use our breath to breathe through it. We can use our awareness, just noting and tracking those sensations. We can return our awareness to breath. We might experience breath in a few different spaces. If you're in a forward fold, once again, we've got a little pressure here that may create an opportunity to feel pressure in the belly, that may create an opportunity to feel this in the side and back rib cage. If you're resting on your back, it might create an opportunity to really feel that breath go a little bit deeper into the bottom rib cage, maybe into the expansion of the belly. Our forward folds can be very calming to our central nervous system, very specifically our autonomic nervous system, that involuntary nervous system because of that vagus nerve. It all goes back to Vegas, right? Putting some pressure on that vagus nerve that roots out through most of our organs, indicating again through that vagus nerve that we would like to be at ease. When you're ready, we're going to begin to either rise up, or if you are reclining, you might use those hands to help draw those knees in. Take the wiggles that you would like, that you need. A little opportunity here to move around. We are going to come to recline. If you do like something behind your head, go ahead and grab hold of it. I usually use my blanket. As we're reclining, we're going to do a twist here a little bit different. So we did our deer pose, a little more active through the torso. This one, I'm going to ask you for a hip opener. So a little different than we typically do, and you kind of get to choose your twist. If it's okay with you, we are going to stretch our left leg long, and we're going to draw our right knee in towards our chest. We take our left hand and pull it across the body. Now, we might go all the way across, which is going to make it more torso. Or, and you can see here that I'm stopping right about the outside edge of my left side body to open up some hip structure, pardon me, and some glute structure. So this is a little nod really to our sleeping swan, a little different way to access it, because I also want to include a bit of a chest opener. So as we're holding on with our left hand in that knee, our right arm is reaching out into a T. You can't see my right arm, but it's reaching towards the wall. And it gives us some expansiveness through that heart center, through the collarbone. And it invites some release, not just through the hip, but through the heart center too. A little different twist, maybe not even in a full twist. Hip opener, chest opener. What you might notice, and we're going to hold this, pardon me, I keep coughing. It's a chest opener for sure. What we might notice is that we're just going to hold each side for 3 minutes. In that 3 minutes, that knee just naturally starts to drop over towards the floor. There's a little more release of that connective tissue. We might notice breath. This twisting can restrict breath, but in the end, after we've done both sides, hopefully it's creating more space for breath. We might notice where it's choosing to travel right now. We might use our mind's eye to think about it expanding into the right side rib cage. And I mentioned all those physical benefits here of shoulder opener, of hip opener. We're wringing out as well. So we're wringing out not just physically, but energetically. Twists are very effective in helping us release what no longer serves us. We don't have to think about that. We don't have to analyze that. We don't have to even name it. We can just simply invite it. I breathe in. I exhale what no longer serves me. We're going to begin to release the pose, letting that right knee come back through center. And if it suits you, take a moment in center for both legs to stretch long. It's an opportunity for a little, we've done asymmetrical for a little bit of symmetry, but also for a moment for a little bit of circulation to come back into that compression, and a moment to notice how does that right side feel compared to the left. One of the things I always notice in that release is typically the back of my thighs don't touch the floor. My right thigh is now touching the floor versus my left thigh, which is still hovering off the floor. Maybe noticing some of those subtle differences from side to side, including that shoulder area. We are going to move to the other side. So we'll draw that left knee in while that right leg remains long. We'll take our right hand to draw the knee across the body in a way that makes sense. So maybe pausing there as it goes to the outside of the body. It might come all the way to the floor. If you can reach your left arm out into a T, reaching that arm out so we get this component of a chest opener as well. That right hand is just adding weight to the leg. And as may have happened on the other side, similar here, the more that connective tissue of this whole glute area, hip area, and oblique area, the more that that releases, perhaps the more we feel the knee get closer to the floor. It doesn't have to be that goal, but you may notice that happen. 3 minutes on this side with the idea that perhaps we're exhaling what no longer serves us. Again, inviting it to release. It doesn't have to be named, nor does it have to be analyzed. It just gets to go. We'll let that knee begin to return to center. And if it suits you, letting both legs go long here in center, arms are relaxed just for about a minute, getting out of that compression, but also noticing how we might feel from left to right. We are going to come, if you choose, to rest on your belly. We're going to do crocodile pose. And if you have a pillow, blanket handy, or a combination of those, you might grab those. It helps relieve some of the responsibility off of shoulders. If being on your belly is not where you want to be, feel free to remain on your back in constructive rest pose. You can have feet wide. It's hard to see here, but my knees are dropping towards each other. You might wrap your hands around the heart if it's not restrictive to the breath. Our crocodile pose, we're going to roll over to our belly. And as I mentioned, you might grab something you can place. And really, what this does is take sort of some of the pressure off of our shoulders. So it can help alleviate some of that. We cross our arms, resting our forehead on our arms. You'll notice here, I'm on my meditation pillow. I'm going to just cross and rest my chin on my hands. That's more for microphone reasons. Our feet are fairly wide. And that wide foot sort of idea helps us release some of that sneaky tension that we hold in our buns and in our low back that we may or may not be aware of. A crocodile is really a pose that is helpful in calming that central nervous system. If we're feeling, I should say, our autonomic nervous system, if we're feeling stressed or are ruminating or having lots of thoughts and feelings, coming to the belly and deep pressure on that belly can help, again, inform that vagus nerve that we would like to be in a more parasympathetic response, a more pause, rest, and relax and restore response. We can do a couple of things here with the breath. We can simply notice and maybe invite breath to travel. We've got this pressure on the chest, we have the pressure on the belly. Maybe it travels into the side body, into the back body. We could also extend the exhale. So we might use this sort of awareness of the in breath and count the number of beats it takes us to breathe in. We take that average number over 3 or 4 breaths and we exhale for 1 or 2 extra beats. This is a practice we do to influence that vagus nerve, eavesdropping on our breath, which will then tell the brain we would like to be at ease. So we're really stacking some opportunities to find ease and to make our body more partial to that rest, relax, and restore system. We're using deep pressure, we're using breath, and we're using it actually at the end of class when we're hopefully feeling more at ease, as always, to access more rest, relax, and restore. We are going to begin to transition into our final relaxation space. Maybe like where you're at in Crocodile and you would prefer to stay there. Perhaps there's another space that you would like to rest in. And just so you sort of know where we're headed today, I am not going to bring you back out of relaxation. So I'm going to leave you in that space. We're going to do a little bit of settling, very, very, I will say, quick body scan. Not typically we typically do the 8-minute one. This is going to be a little bit shorter. And then I'll quietly log off. So you may want to stay longer. You might want to make sure you're warm. Socks, sweatshirts, blankets, if you are coming into that space of relaxation. Maybe something behind the head if you're resting on your back, maybe something behind the knees. But feel free to rest in any way that feels restful. It could be on your side, could be staying on your belly, seated, legs up the wall, whatever works for you. So, beginning, if you haven't already, to find your way into that space. And we can use a few of those settling breaths, those deeper inhales that we used at the beginning of class. You can think about those longer exhales, just settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. And once those settling breaths feel complete, we're just inviting the body to breathe itself. No effort to breath. That breath awareness fades away. We invite those longer pauses between thoughts. And that might lead to a quieting of the chatter of the mind. Bringing some awareness here to your entire body as it's supported by the floor. No matter how you're resting, we're supported through the feet, supported through the calves and thighs, supported through the pelvis, supported through the torso, supported through the arms from the palms to the forearms, the upper arms, all the way through the shoulders, the neck, and the head. The whole body supported as you rest here. We let go of all of the doing and the thinking of our hour's practice. We invite ourselves to just be, to be here, resting in ease in this supported space. Maybe even experiencing some sense of well-being. Inviting ourselves to rest in this sense of ease, to rest in this sense of well-being for as long as you choose today.